China dominates the Olympics. At the 2024 Paris Olympics, the country won 91 medals and tied the United States for the most gold medals at the Games. But despite decades of investment and billions spent on football, China still struggles to consistently qualify for the FIFA World Cup. So, why has a country that mastered Olympic sports never truly mastered football? Now, to be clear, this is not a story about China failing at football. The country has hundreds of millions of football fans, European clubs, and enormous Chinese audience. New pitches and academies have appeared across the country. And for years, China has been trying to build something much bigger, a long-term football future. In 2004, China launched the Chinese Super League, a new professional era for Chinese football. Then during the 2010s, investment exploded. Massive clubs, huge contracts, foreign stars arriving from Europe. For a moment, it looked like Chinese football was about to change forever. But football may be one of the few things in the world that cannot be built quickly. And that may be the most important lesson of this entire story. China's Olympic success did not happen accidentally. For decades, the country invested heavily in athlete development systems designed to identify talent early and train athletes at an elite level. Young athletes were selected very young, placed into specialized programs, and trained with extraordinary discipline and structure. The system focuses heavily on sports where precision, repetition, discipline, and technical mastery mattered enormously. And the results were incredible. China became one of the world's dominant Olympic nations, especially in sports like diving, table tennis, weightlifting, gymnastics, shooting, and badminton. These sports reward technical perfection, and China became extremely good at producing that kind of excellence. At the 2024 Olympics alone, China finished second overall with 91 medals and 40 gold medals, one of the country's strongest Olympic performance ever outside Beijing. In many ways, China proved something remarkable. With enough organization, planning, infrastructure, and investment, a country can rapidly become a global sports powerhouse. But football operates differently, and that changes everything. Football is chaotic. A player has to think instantly, improvise under pressure, read movements constantly, react emotionally, create something unpredictable in seconds. And that's difficult to manufacture from the top down. Many of the world's strongest football cultures developed naturally over generations. In Brazil, children grew up playing football everywhere, on beaches, in alleyways, on streets, in neighborhoods, in tiny spaces between buildings. The same thing happened in Argentina, England, France. Football became part of everyday life long before it became professional. That environment creates instinct, creativity, confidence. Players are not simply learning drills. They are learning how to feel the game. And maybe that is the biggest difference between football and many other Olympic sports. Because football culture usually grows from the bottom up. China understood this challenge, and during the 2010s, the country launched one of the most ambitious football projects modern football has ever seen, the Chinese Super League. It suddenly became one of the most fastest growing leagues in the world. New stadiums appeared, investment surged, television deals exploded. Then came the global stars: Oscar, Hulk, Carlos Tevez, Jackson Martinez. Some players were earning salaries that shocked European football. At one point, people around the world genuinely wondered whether China could become football's next superpower. At the same time, football academies expanded rapidly across the country. Schools introduced more football programs, new training centers appeared, the government pushed long term football development plans. President Xi Jinping openly spoke about three major goals for Chinese football: to qualify for the World Cup, to host the World Cup, and eventually win it. And honestly, it did not sound impossible. China had the population, the infrastructure, the money, the ambition, and one of the world's largest fan bases. But football development is rarely linear because football culture takes time. Money can build stadiums, money can hire elite coaches, money can create academies, but football culture is harder to accelerate. The greatest football nations usually have generations of local clubs, school competitions, community rivalries, and neighborhood football traditions. That creates emotional connection to the game. Children grow up not simply training football but living football. And many analysts believe this grassroots layer is what China is still developing. Because football development is not about producing athletes, it's about producing football instincts, creativity, freedom, improvisation, decision making under pressure. And these things often grow slowly through thousands of hours of informal play. That may be why football remains one of the hardest sports in the world to dominate. Not because countries lack money, but because football is deeply connected to culture itself. And this is where the story becomes very interesting. Because in recent years, grassroots football in China has actually started growing in new ways. Amateur leagues and community tournaments have started attracting huge attention. One example is the Village Super League in Guangzhou province. Unlike massive professional football projects, this league feels local, organic, community driven. Farmers, students, factory workers, ordinary people playing because they genuinely love football. And millions of people started watching. Some matches began attracting crowds comparable to professional clubs. For many people, this felt different, less manufactured, more emotional, more connected to everyday life. And maybe that matters more than people realize. China's story teaches us something much bigger than sports. Some things can be built quickly through organization, discipline, investment, and long term planning. China proved that through its Olympic success. But football may be different because football is not only a sport, it is culture, emotion, identity, community, creativity. And maybe that is why football remains so difficult to dominate. Not because countries lack ambition or infrastructure or talent, but because the strongest football cultures are usually built slowly across generations through schools, neighborhoods, local clubs, friends playing after school, children falling in love with the game long before anyone teaches them tactics. China is still searching for that balance, and maybe one day the country will eventually become a football superpower too. But if that happens, it probably won't happen overnight. It will happen when football stops feeling like a national project and simply becomes part of everyday life.